You did it again. Someone bumped into you and you said sorry. The meeting ran long because your colleague wouldn't stop talking, and when it finally ended, you apologized for keeping everyone. You got the order wrong at a restaurant, not you, the kitchen, and when the server came back, you felt the apology rising in your throat before they'd even finished explaining. And the strange part is, you knew. In the moment, some part of you knew it wasn't yours to carry. But the word came out anyway, almost automatic, like breathing. Most people hear that and assume it's just politeness, a social reflex, maybe a little neurotic, but harmless. And look, sometimes that's true. But when it's chronic, when sorry is your default response to discomfort regardless of fault, the psychology underneath it goes somewhere that has nothing to do with manners. It has to do with safety. Here's what's actually happening. Your nervous system, long before your conscious mind forms a coherent thought, is running a threat assessment. Not a dramatic one, not fight or flight exactly, something quieter and more social. It's asking, is this person about to become a problem? And the apology, your apology, is the fastest available tool to neutralize that. This is called the fawn response. First named by therapist Pete Walker, it sits alongside fight, flight, and freeze as a fourth stress response. And unlike the others, it's uniquely social. Where fight pushes back and flight exits, fawning moves toward the perceived threat with appeasement. A smile, an agreement, an apology. Anything that reduces the temperature before it rises.
The fawn response doesn't develop randomly. Researchers have consistently linked it to early environments where conflict felt genuinely dangerous. Not necessarily physically. Sometimes it was a parent whose moods were unpredictable, a household where tension could shift without warning, and the child learned, very efficiently, that keeping people calm was the safest available strategy, that keeping people calm was their job. And the brain that learns this doesn't unlearn it easily, because it worked. The apology smoothed things over. The agreement prevented the argument. The smile de-escalated the room. Your nervous system filed all of that as evidence. This is how you survive people. And it has been running that same program ever since, even in relationships that are nothing like the one that taught it to you. Now, here is where it gets more specific and perhaps more uncomfortable. There's a difference between someone who apologizes reflexively in moments of tension and someone who apologizes preemptively, before anything has even gone wrong. The second group is operating from something slightly different. It's not just conflict avoidance, it's a deeper-seated belief, often unexamined, that their presence itself requires justification. Psychologists call this a low sense of interpersonal worth, the internal working assumption that you are at some baseline level slightly too much, slightly in the way, taking up space that needs to be earned rather than simply occupied. So the apology arrives not in response to a specific transgression, but as a general announcement. I know I'm here, I'm sorry for that, please don't hold it against me. You see this in the person who qualifies every opinion. I might be wrong, but who prefaces every request with an extensive explanation of why they hate to ask. Who says sorry when they're the one who's been hurt because their distress might be inconvenient for the person who caused it. It doesn't feel like low self-worth from the inside. From the inside, it feels like consideration, like empathy, like being thoughtful about how your needs affect other people. And that makes it genuinely difficult to examine because it has dressed itself in virtues. There's also something worth naming about how gender intersects with this. Research consistently shows women apologize more frequently than men, not because women do more wrong, but because the threshold for what registers as
worthy is lower. A 2010 study by Schumann and Ross found the gap wasn't in willingness to apologize, but in offense perception. Women reported more offenses overall, including their own behavior as requiring repair. The apology isn't about guilt, it's about sensitivity to relational rupture, and in many environments, that sensitivity was the adaptive thing to be. But adaptive then is not always functional now, because here is what chronic, unnecessary apology actually costs you. It erodes something. Not dramatically, not all at once, but over time, constant apology without cause reshapes how you are perceived and how you perceive yourself. People unconsciously adjust their treatment of you to match the story you're telling about yourself. And the story sorry tells, repeated enough times in contexts that don't require it, is that you are responsible for everyone's comfort but your own. And you start to believe it. The pattern can be interrupted, but not through simply deciding to say sorry less, because the apology was never really about the word. It was about the spike of discomfort that arrives when you imagine someone being displeased with you, and the learned knowledge that sorry makes the spike go away fastest. What actually changes it is building tolerance for that discomfort, letting the tension exist for a moment without immediately resolving it in everyone else's favor, noticing the apology arrive and asking very simply,
Whose discomfort am I actually managing right now? Mine or theirs? That question alone, asked consistently, starts to do something. Because the over-apologizer isn't actually empathetic about everyone. They're specifically anxious about disapproval. And learning to tell the difference between genuine care for another person and fear of their reaction is where something begins to shift. You are not too much. You are not a disruption that requires constant apology. The room does not need you to be smaller so that everyone else can be comfortable in it. The sorry that costs you nothing is fine. The sorry you give to make yourself feel temporarily safe at the expense of what's actually true, that one's worth looking at. Because somewhere underneath it is a version of you that stopped apologizing for existing a long time ago. You just haven't quite caught up with them yet.